Hello, Rena.
Hello, Dr. Bach.
Welcome to chat with Rena K and me, Dr. Bach Ho. We're both organic intelligence coaches. We help people reduce suffering and increase capacity to handle more in life with ease using the protocols of organic intelligence. In these chats, Rena and I try to aim both at people who are completely new to organic intelligence and people who already know its basics. We try to find the balance. Today, our topic is when is sensation tracking harmful?
Mm.
Uh, in a in a moment, Rena, I'll probably ask you to what is a sensation? What is sensation tracking exactly? I have a few comments I want to make before I hand it to you for that. If you're willing to take up those questions. So sen with sensation tracking, we're in the realm of somatic oriented approaches to therapy, which is a certain wing of therapy. And then there's also the wing of CBT, there's the wing of like psychodynamic approaches. I wanted to make some big picture free association comments first. Um, in therapy at large, there's often a focus on feel your feelings. It's good to feel your feelings. And I remember I read a lot of Reddit, and in the therapist section, there was a therapist I remember. She was retiring, and she had been a psychotherapist for decades, and she was writing a post summarizing all her experience and wisdom and boiling down the essence of good therapy. And she said the essence from all my decades is feel your feelings. That's the way. Feel your feelings, feel your feelings, feel your feelings. Um, so there's definitely feel your feelings in the realm of more mainstream therapy, and then in somatic approaches, there's a sensation tracking is the big phrase. I'm curious about in the mainstream therapy and culture, when people talk about feel your feelings, what does that mean exactly? How do they understand it? And then with sensation tracking, is that the same thing but more nuanced? Is it how would you relate feel your feelings in general to sensation tracking specifically? And then what is a sensation exactly? And what exactly is sensation tracking? Feel free to take up whatever you want in that as you feel.
Oh, there's a lot
Yeah, yeah,
there
yeah,
for sure. And it's interesting. I'm thinking where to start. Let's
yeah.
start with sensation. Like, what are we talking about with sensation? Because I think feelings actually, or what people think of as feelings, actually builds off of sensation. So if we think about sensation, we're talking about what people have termed an interoceptive awareness. So it's an awareness of something that is happening uh, below the surface of the skin inside your body, right? So it is possible to feel hot wind blowing against your skin, and so your skin has the feeling of hot temperature. That's not interoception. But if you're having a hot flash as a menopausal woman, you feel that heat from the inside. That would we be the sense of an interoceptive or an internal sensation. Both are technically sensations. Like feeling heat on the outside, that's a sensation. Feeling heat from the inside, that's a sensation. When people are often talking about sensation or sensation tracking, they're talking about those internal or interoceptive um, qualities of noticing whether it be temperature, like hot, warm, cold, if there's something like pressure, like pressure from the inside, pressure down, pressure from the out in, like senses of pressure, senses of vibration. There's all kinds of qualities of vibration. All of those can be sensations that people experience. And so we all know, like if you feel hungry, that's a sensation. There's something happening on the inside of your body, and you're aware of that something that is happening. Now, fortunately, we don't feel most sensations happening. Like we don't feel cells expanding and contracting. By and large, we don't feel the heartbeat very often on a regular basis. We can if it gets sped up or the pressure increases. But there's lots of sensations that could be felt that most of us don't feel most of the time. And that's probably to our advantage that we aren't wasting brain energy paying attention to what the body's doing every second of the day. But in the world of, say, somatics, that quote unquote tracking, that word is like really just a fancy word or a non-fancy word for pay attention. So there is some kind of awareness or attentional direction towards noticing that sensation. So it's interesting that I look at feelings, like what people would kind of call emotions in a sense. Feelings or affect is really an awareness of some kind of sensation. So we use these affect words to describe sensations. So if you feel sad, how do you know that you feel sad? Well, there's all these sensations that are happening that have been labeled as sad. Likewise, if you feel angry, you're feeling sensation. So there's either heat, your heart is pounding, there's muscular tension, there's different things that are happening in your body, and you go, oh, that equals feeling angry. So when we talk about feelings, and so somebody says, feel your feelings, well, what are they saying from a psychotherapy
Mm.
context? They're probably actually saying something else. So what in a psychotherapy context they're probably saying is not only do you have the sensation, not only do you have then awareness of that sensation, and in that awareness we give it a feeling or an emotion word, but then we have all the meaning channel stuff that goes with it. And so I often think of emotions as being that. It's the sensation that you become aware of and given a label to, and then all of these thoughts that you have about that. I actually think of as emotions. And so when in therapy they say feel your feelings, I think they're usually saying, well, pay attention to the sensations, the affective language you're using, and the all of the thoughts that go with it. It's a very mushy, nondescript kind of thing that people are saying when they say feel your feelings.
Okay, so and then in with the concept of and phrase sensation tracking, that's more precise because it's more codified in how somatic therapies understand it. Would you say that it's more
And I would
precise
actually say it's more precise in general,
in
right?
general?
Like so yes, it's what somatic therapies have brought to the psychotherapeutic world because technically the psychotherapeutic world when they say feel your feelings, they're really saying think about the things that you are experiencing and have thoughts about it and be open to those thoughts and talk about those thoughts. So most
Um,
often in psychotherapy, when they say feel your feelings, they're not talking about feelings. They're talking about all the meaning channel or all the thoughts that go along with the sensations.
that tracks with my experience when I was doing uh, as a client of several psychodynamic therapists, when they would emphasize feel your feelings, there was never a let's pause and have you feel your feelings. It was just like let's keep talking and talk about your feelings. So that
Right.
makes sense to me that, oh, so let me just let, when many people talk about feel your feelings, they often mean think about your feelings, go into cognition. Yeah.
Right. And
Okay.
and often a like a metacognitive awareness.
Right.
Right. So it's not just whatever the thoughts are there, it's your thoughts about your thoughts and your thoughts about the sensations, even though they don't use the word sensations,
Mm.
right? They use the word feelings, and what I'm saying is feelings are really sensations that you've just learned to label with feeling vocabulary.
Feelings are sensations, and tracking sensations is paying attention to them, paying attention to your
Right.
feelings.
Which would be what's
Yeah,
happening on a body level. Right. So
right.
when we talk about so in the world of somatics, when they talk about somatic tracking, they're talking notice what's happening on the level of the body as opposed to on the level of the cognition.
Yes. A question that just popped up to me, it may seem from an angle, but I was looking at those lists of emotion words, lists of sensation words, and there's zillions of lists, and then zillions of emotion words, and zillions of sensation words proffered. I'm just curious, in the somatic therapy world, is there some number like 10 or 20 of sensations people are looking at, or is it like 5 or 10, or is it 50? It just some ballpark of like,
Right.
are they individuated, and is there a list of the ballpark of how many there are that are
It's a
human?
little no, I mean like with emotions, they talk about there's, either five basic emotions or seven basic emotions. Different people theorize, the basic emotions and then everything else is a offshoot of that. In the sensation world, some people have also tried to, in a sense, create a rubric in a sense. So, there's sensations related to temperature, there's sensations related to pressure, there's sensations related to, certain parts of the body, that kind of thing. I mean, people have tried to put them into categories. The categories have become a little challenging and they break down. But oftentimes you'll see a list, and a list will have, I mean, and I've created such lists actually, and just making up words that people commonly use to describe body sensations. And there's a lot of overlap in those words, like buzzy or jittery or shaky, how distinct they are. I don't know that we have that, but it's really just to give
Mm,
people an ability to differentiate. So most often and this is what people in the world of somatics would say is beneficial about somatic tracking. Well, maybe they wouldn't say this, but what I would say the possibility is that for some people, the experience of what they feel in their body is just one big amorphous blob, right? And they have no sense of any kind of, oh, well, I feel this kind of pounding in my head, and I feel this, fluttery feeling in my chest, and I
mm,
feel this heaviness in my pelvis, right? Like that would be a very differentiated conversation of what sensations are being experienced.
mm,
And for some people to have that differentiation makes this very blobby quality of, I don't know what I'm experiencing. I don't know what I'm feeling is the word. And this is the hard thing. Feelings is used for affect and feelings is used for sensation, like body
right.
sensations, right? So everybody uses the same verb, and that's why I think they're actually really kind of the same thing. But and the language, in a sense, belies that. But it can be helpful for people who, especially when they have all of this unpleasantness in their internal world, that getting some differentiation helps them feel a sense of some agency and some sense of control.
Yes. Um, why is it called? Question of the moment. I don't know how important it is, but it feels. Why is it called sensation tracking rather than sensation feeling? I'm not trying to be dry or academic, but it just occurred to me like,
I don't know. I'd have to
okay,
actually look up who coined the term tracking at some point. I think the idea was a little bit like being an animal tracker, that animals can be hidden, but they leave little
oh, okay,
signs of where they were. And so you can kind of follow those signs and find them in a sense. And so I think the idea is that if we track sensation, we're gonna find something. I'm not too
yes.
sure. Maybe ourselves. I actually don't know where that word first came from. So it's an interesting question.
I wonder. Um, and organic intelligence has lists of sensation terms, which I've never studied in detail and have never memorized at all. And I have not, fa they have not come into my work very much. And Ayn Rand, whom I admire a lot, I keep going back to her saying there are two fundamental sensations, pleasure and pain. And I just went with that, and my whole YouTube and Substack are on that. And then in practice, with my clients, is it pleasure or pain? Is it pleasure or pain? Is it pleasure or pain? So I just go with that. And as sensation terms come up, it comes up from them. I don't, it's not like I have a list of,
Right.
is it tight or heavy or light
Right.
or buzzy, or it's more like, what do you feel? And is it pleasure or painful? And that's the
Right.
compass. Yeah.
Yeah, the way I think these words have come in and organic intelligence doesn't offer them very often, and when it does it in the courses that are for the general public who are just first getting introduced to organic intelligence. And again, I think it's to support the experience of differentiation and to support the experience
Oh,
of
right.
some kind of
Okay.
agency, right? But what can happen is when people start to use these different words, they're often learning to have a more neutral stance towards them. So, what would have been considered unpleasant? So, if you just ask, is that pleasant or unpleasant? They'd be like, oh, it doesn't feel good. But then, if you have them watch the sensation, they might be like, oh, well, it's just buzzy, or it's just jittery, or it's just
Hmm.
pounding, or it's just warmth, or it's just like all of these things. And all of the sensation words can have both a pleasant or an unpleasant side to it. So what happens is people start to learn in the differentiation process that oh, this is just a sensation. And very often sensations go away really quickly in about 20 seconds. Whatever sensation you're feeling, it's going to be gone in about 20 seconds. And so then they learn that oh, these things don't stick around, right? They
Yeah.
just come and go, and it starts teaching the idea that sensations, but then also if emotions are really or feelings are really just the awareness or a word we've given to the sensation, they start realizing their feelings also come and go. So anger, if you watch the sensation or if you track the sensation of it, it's not very long. It's usually about 20 seconds before the feeling of anger goes away. There's the only way it can be elongated is if you then have meaning or thought added to it, right?
And your focus just now was more on unpleasant sensations. The that by noticing them and getting and oh, it's buzzing, they move through more quickly and they feel less unpleasant. But
Oftentimes, that would be
oftentimes,
one of the
right, right.
reasons why people are doing quote unquote somatic tracking.
I had a and with pleasant sensations, well, organic intelligence would say feel them, feel them, feel them, feel them, feel them,
Right.
right? Okay. Um, I know the topic is when is sensation tracking harmful, and I'll get right to that in just a moment. But when I asked, I just had a further thought. When I asked you earlier, why is it sensation tracking, not feeling? And I was, are you getting academic Bach? But what's coming to mind right now is that, um, oh, I'm trying to, my brain is trying to, Rena. Sensation tracking, you know how when you said when people talk about feel your feelings, often they actually mean think about them and do meta thinking. in in sensation tracking, I find that sometimes that's how people understand it. Like, oh, there's a feeling of warmth in my calf. Okay, I'm tracking it with my brain, with my conscious. I'm tracking it, and they're somehow detached from it. And then one point in organic intelligence, Steve sometimes says, is that's not really feeling. That's like if there's pleasure in your calf, feel it, feel the pleasure. But if you're doing sensation tracking, like I'm going to be mindful from up from my forehead on what's below, including on what's pleasurable, that's not feeling your sensations. And when it's pleasant, you should well feel what when it's pleasant, you should feel it. Not just track it as in I'm gonna be like distant and equanimous with respect to my
Yeah.
sensation, right?
Well,
So
and I think I could be wrong, but I think when I've heard Steve talk about it, he's talked about it in the context, and maybe he's talked about it in other contexts, but what I'm remembering is in the context of the word embodied. So
yeah,
people often use this idea of I'm embodied if I'm sensation tracking. And Steve would be like, well, no, you're not. You're actually kind of like outside yourself, watching yourself.
right.
And that actually isn't an embodied feeling. Embodied is just having the experience, and the experience is the experience, and you're not outside yourself watching the experience. I think that gets a little hard to parse out, like when are we doing which?
Yeah. Eh,
But there is a point to we don't become embodied necessarily by tracking sensation. I think that would be Steve would agree
okay,
with that
right,
comment,
right,
but I
right.
I don't know. I'd have to run that by him.
Um, when is sensation tracking harmful? My offering is it's harmful as a rule of thumb when it's unpleasant.
I would agree.
It's beneficial as a rule of thumb when it's pleasant. Pleasure is good, pain is bad. yes, bring on the objections to organic intelligence. You're too simple. Just look around the room, feel some pleasure, and you're healed. But yeah, that's what we're saying. If you take that seriously and really nuance it out. But yes,
Right.
so um, how could we be right if all these more established approaches are having people track unpleasant sensation?
No. The question is not how are we right? The question is how are they maybe wrong, right? So in other
And
words,
you don't have to answer
the
if my question was at an angle that you don't like, just feel free to.
no, I think it's great
Okay.
because but what I'm saying is I don't know that the onus or responsibility is on us to prove that we're right. I think the onus
Oh,
or responsibility is on the people who are tracking unpleasant sensation to go, well, what is the purpose of
dang,
that
that was,
and where does
thank
that
you.
go,
Okay, thank
right?
you. Yeah.
And I think there is two directions. So if you're having an unpleasant sensation and you are watching that unpleasant sensation, it can either become more unpleasant and you can go down the line of unpleasant, not only in the sensation of it, but usually what happens is then, oh, now I have all these thoughts about it, like, oh my gosh, will this ever get better? Will this ever be, when is this going to go away? Like all these kind of thoughts. If the noticing of unpleasant sensation leads you to further unpleasantness, right? That's harmful. That is not good. That's not the direction that we want to go. And it is possible to notice, to be at a place where you can have an unpleasant sensation. And while, in a sense, tracking it or paying attention or just noticing it, you have a neutral stance towards it. And by having a neutral stance towards it, it may end up changing the sensation and making the sensation itself more neutral.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking I've done a little bit of too much over the head type activities. So hanging wallpaper, washing a bunch of windows, putting a bunch of boxes up high in storage. Like I've done a ton of over the head activity, and I have a former injury in my shoulder, and so I woke up a couple days ago like with enough pain that it was making me cry. Right. So somehow the nerve got activated in that old injury, and it was not a happy feeling, to say the least. It was very unpleasant. And so unpleasant that I couldn't move. It was affecting all of my body. And so I have enough experience with this because I used to be a body worker. So I taught people how to do this. I was able to spend some time just being with the sensation. I'm like, oh, it's located here. Here I feel warmth, but here I feel like a jabby thing. And right there, I feel a little throbby and I can isolate the different things. Like I'm completely neutral to it. I'm just paying attention to it. And in time, it became less and less paying attention. The sensation became more of a neutral meditative experience. And that lowered the pain levels from what was a, say, 10, because it was making me cry, to, like a 3 or 4. I mean, it still wasn't
Hmm.
pleasant, but it certainly lowered it because I was able to watch it with that level of neutrality. So I would say that's the other time that you can get away with watching sensation at not being harmful, even if it's unpleasant. If you're able to do so with more neutrality, it can lower the
Yes.
unpleasantness of the sensation.
Tracking tracking what's unpleasant with more of a neutral approach and then finding more neutrality and reduced unpleasantness in it. Yes, sir. Ver A plus. And um, what about, oh man, something just popped up. Oh man, I'm gonna regret this. No, it has to be. Oh man. Sorry, Rena. It was just internal, my battles with my what about when there's pleasure, but the person is trying to not. Okay, to someone in the world right now, thank you for being down with this. Okay, so suppose hypothetically, someone comes to you as a client and says, Bach, or Rena, um, I want to work with you, and I'm he's a guy, and I'm Christian, devout Christian. I'm a family man, and I'm a leader in my community in business. I'm a CEO and in my religious community, and I'm coming to you, and I really want to work with you, and I see sex workers and I hate it, and I watch porn and I hate it, and I masturbate and I hate it. I do not want to do any of these things, and I want you to be my coach. And then you say, dude, you came to the wrong ass person. This is not a house of God. Look at my poster. Hypothetical. I mean, this is not, there's no God. All your values are wrong. I'm against everything that you stand for and want. But I know a bunch of Christian coaches and therapists who would be delighted to help
Mhm.
you resist pleasure. And then
Mhm.
he's like, sorry, yeah, this is happening. And he's like, no, can you work with me? I just told you I'm against everything that you believe, and yeah, but I want you.
Mhm.
I said, fine. And then you get into this thing, and like, okay, you agree. I'm willing to work with you because you really want to work with me. So obviously you see something in me. And then you're in this thing where he, I am going to ask you what you think of all this, but let me just lay out the. So then he wants to like, okay, if I text you this emoji at night, that means I fell off the wagon. I saw a sex worker or watched porn or masturbated. But if I send you this emoji, that means I resisted, and then so I agreed to thumbs up when he resisted, and I felt or this hypothetical person, I felt because we contracted that you want to do this, you want to resist the pleasure, so I'll thumbs up that. But then sometimes you'll just send me photos of naked women with big boobs because you like big boobs. First of all, I don't like seeing women, especially naked, but I'm excited that you are, whatever your mood you're in, you're into that. I mean, you're sending me naked women with big boobs, so I'll thumbs up that. But then that does not violate the contract because I had agreed to try to help you with your anti,
Mhm.
you know. And then
Yeah.
so this goes on, and then you're getting frustrated, and then sorry, Rena. And then one time in session, he's in shame. I saw this sex worker. She had really big boobs. I love them. I feel such self-hatred. And then you're like, fuck this. I'm done with this. Is the sex worker in your mind right now? And he says, yes. Are her boobs in your mind? Yes. Okay. Bury your head into her boobs right now. Bury
Mhm.
your head in. Get your forehead in there. Yes. Get your nose in there. This is all out. This is get your tongue
Mhm.
in there, jiggle,
Mhm.
grab her boobs and press them into your ears and enjoy and soak up the sensation while you're thinking, what the hell am I doing? Is this but this is just instinct and like pleasure. And he did and feel the pleasure and feel the pleasure and feel the pleasure and feel the shame melting away. Suppose this hypothetically happens. What do you have any thoughts? Random free association thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a case of just being pro pleasure, and then someone's coming at you who's not
Right.
really that, and you tried to refer them out, but they really want you, so you're getting
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, this is what you're describing is not an unusual conflict that people have because there are certain things that people do that on one level feel pleasurable in the moment, but on the other level, there is a sense of either guilt or shame based on societal teaching or even one's own internal belief systems. And so obviously that's a situation where a person has an inner conflict and it falls into the realm of the kind of shame work that I do, working with people who feel
Yes,
shame about whatever they're doing. Um, I'm gonna unload it just a smidge, right? And I'm gonna switch the topic. So I've done this with people around smoking who feel like they should quit smoking. They want to quit smoking. There's good reasons health-wise to quit smoking, and yet they keep smoking, right? And so I've actually worked with them around the enjoyment of every little bit about the experience, from the buying of the cigarettes to the sound of the cellophane to the taking it open to the first smell that when it opens up to the feeling in the fingers, right? Like step by step by step to enjoy every bit of that. Because if you're gonna do something, right, another, if you're gonna eat the brownie, fully effing enjoy it, right? Like there's something about being able to separate the pleasure from the cognitive shame about it. What usually happens, and I've seen this over and over again, and this comes from a teacher. This is not organic intelligence. This is a guy named Bill Harris that was passed away a number of years ago. But he used to say that you cannot do something harmful to yourself without, unless you've disconnected in some way. So, in other words, if you are fully enjoying an experience, if it is actually harmful, you will come to a point of completion and you'll stop, right? Because you cannot do something that is actually harmful to yourself. And one could say this person that you're describing, if that behavior is causing a rift in his relationship with his partner or spouse, like that would be a problem. It is harmful to the relationship. Then if the person fully enjoys it in the moment, possibly in the imagination, like you were describing, the possibility is that it can come to some kind of completion and find a way to it would no longer have the same kind of urgency. And this gets into the whole issue of addictions and negative urgency and that kind of stuff. And so the better avenue, as long as you are not directly harming yourself or harming another person or their property, is to let yourself fully enjoy it. And the challenge, especially around sexuality, is most people can't do that without shame kicking in. People around cigarette smoking or eating the brownie, they can usually do that
Mm.
without so much shame kicking in. And as soon as shame kicks in, you're no longer enjoying it. And so that becomes a much more complicated process to work with.
I hear you. Okay. Yeah, 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 I'm with you.
Yeah.
Um, since we're on our time, I wanted to make some comments shifting about, is organic intelligence a somatic approach? How does organic intelligence differ from somatic experiencing? Those are major questions people have. I just wanted to offer some remarks on that. I know it's a pivot from what we were just talking about directly, but um, uh, no, it's not primarily a somatic approach. Yes, I know the publications are in somatic therapy journals, so that's a kind of like, Bach, how can you say that when the publications are in somatic therapy, body, poor and all that, but it's not a primarily somatic approach because it doesn't preference sensation. It works with many channels, sensation and thought and image, and especially orientation. And if anything, sensation tracking is to serve more orientation. It's not that orientation is just a resource for then the real work, which is sensation. And furthermore, if there's it, so orientation is everything. And outside of orientation, if there's going to be a particular aspect of experience that's primary, arguably it's actually image. This doesn't talk about so much, but in later stages, more advanced stages of auto-organization, according to Steve, image becomes the dominant channel. We don't hear that so much because the later advanced material is for later, and it's old in the sense that there are old courses on it, but it's being revamped, so it'll come out later. But so it's not a primarily somatic approach, because it doesn't preference sensation. Orientation is everything. Sensation tracking, mind work, image work, all that serve orientation. And outside of orientation, if anything, it's going to be image. I'm just offering those thoughts uh, for people to think about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Well, and it's bringing up this is, I'm going to pivot back to our original conversation.
please. Yeah, sorry, but yeah.
It brings up another thought that I have about when is tracking sensations harmful. And tracking sensations will be harmful when there is a lack of differentiation between all those different channels. So, image,
Oh,
meaning, affect, sensation, they all get glommed together. And so, as soon as you're feeling the sensation, you have this image, and then you have this thought, and then you have this emotion, and then you have this another sensation, and it's generally in the unpleasant category. Um, and so, when you're unable to just feel a sensation in a way that doesn't start you down this train of all these other associations that are happening, that too would be an example of when it would be less beneficial to or more deleterious to actually track your sensations in that moment. So
yeah.
we find that the tracking of sensations tends to be a later stage in working with people. And you're saying image is even a later stage. I would agree with that, right? But certainly there is a place for sensation tracking. We just want it to have some of these caveats that
Oh,
we've been talking about.
yes. Thank you. Image is a later stage, but also an early stage. It can be an early stage.
Fair enough.
So actually, let's not belabor. I won't belabor that. But okay. When is I'm going to summarize and have you, and then give you last word, and then I'll. When is sensation? Okay. When is feeling your sensations harmful? When it's unpleasant as a rule of thumb? When is it beneficial? When it's pleasant or neutral, or you're finding the less unpleasant parts of unpleasant sensation moving towards neutral. And um, I forgot if I was talking about harm or benefit, but and more beneficial when you have more orientation online and when you have more access to thoughts and images, so that if needed, you can distribute intensity into other aspects, orientation, image, a cognition, if intensity is getting too high in sensation. Okay. Last final thoughts, Rena, on when sensation affects.
We could talk more about that. What you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
brought up now would be interesting to contrast with what I brought up, which is the lack of differentiation versus distribution through other channels.
No, but that
So,
is the differentiation, though. That
okay.
requires. Wait, sorry.
Well, I think there would need to be some clarity for people. I understand what you're saying, but the idea is that you don't want things to go down these other channels in this automatic way that's also
Oh, okay.
unpleasant.
So damn it. Sorry, you're right. Damn it. Why is everything so complicated? That's not against you, Rena. That's just so there's a question of whether the intensity in a channel is accelerating and approaching over threshold, or if the sloshing of intensity through other channels is actually a distribution. How about we just do that next week, or maybe some other time?
Yeah,
Is that
that sounds
okay?
great.
Okay. So
Let's
yeah,
do that next week because I think that that can
yeah,
be
yeah,
its own
yeah.
conversation.
Okay. So any other thoughts for now? For now, but thank you. Yeah.
Well, I guess take tracking sensations with a grain of salt,
And
and
enjoy.
and then and do whatever you can that's neutral and enjoyable.
Nice. Sounds good to me. And okay, so you can reach out to Rena to learn more about her OI informed courses on healing from shame, her specialty, and for individual session work. And you can reach out to me for individual session work. You have a taste of how I might operate sometimes from my anecdote today, or from hypothetically. Links in the description to learn more about each of us, and we will look forward